Welcome to The Law Works for You with me, Chelsea Galicia, where every month I interview a new attorney in a different field of law to help you understand how the law can work for you. Today we have my dear, dear friend Dan Kramer here from Kramer, Holcomb & Sheik to talk about personal injury matters. So this is a really broad subject matter, and this is probably the way that most people have interaction with the law. Hopefully it's not criminal.
Hopefully not, yeah.
So let's just dive right in because there is so much to talk about. I'm going to try not to crack up. Dan and I go way back. We've been really good friends since law school. This is so funny for me to have him here because not only does he have his own firm now, but he's doing things like he's a professor at the law school that we went to.
Don't be so incredulous.
I mean,
come on.
They must have not looked into his past very
Wow,
deeply.
wow.
But he really does know his stuff. He has so many awards and accolades. We would go on for the entire half an hour if I had to run down the list of them. But to make a long story short, he knows what he's talking about. He has been on both sides of the law, not like a criminal and a lawyer, but as in defense.
We'll keep my college in the past, right? You know?
But more defense and plaintiffs. So he's an incredibly well-rounded person. And
thank you. Very happy to be here. This is great.
This is awesome.
What you're doing. Yeah,
all right, cool. So let's jump into this.
Sure.
Personal injury, what does that mean?
So personal injury is a very broad topic. What I focus on is personal injury involving auto accidents, slip and falls. It can go as far as a plane crash, a bad drug. A doctor can be negligent and cause an injury. I deal with injuries that occur outside of the workplace that are caused by someone else's negligence. And that can be an individual person, like I said, a company. It can be an employee of a company who was negligent, say, in an auto accident while they were in the course and scope of employment. It could be a company that puts out a bad drug, such as a diet pill, or
don't take those diet pills. That's silly anyway.
They're dangerous. But there's all sorts of ways that people are unfortunately, sadly injured because either the company wanted to make a better profit, or a company did not have proper safety procedures in place for their drivers, for example. Or simply that people are just negligent. They're not paying attention to the wheel. They're texting while they're driving.
Oh gosh, you probably see a lot of those cases.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. Unfortunately, it's very sad. It's the new drunk driving. To tell you the truth, it's just as dangerous. And unfortunately, I've seen so many people come to my office lately. I mean, in the last few years, when texting has become more and more popular, that they were injured by a texting driver, and it's
scary.
It's very sad to see because we've all been caught doing it. You know, and
not me.
We try to stop doing it. You don't. I mean, but people do it, and it's extremely dangerous. I mean, there's been statistics out there that say it is more dangerous than drunk driving now.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, because we've done a great job as a society clamping down on drunk driving, which is great. But now we have this other issue is the texting, and a lot of people have been injured by it.
So let's ask you to put your professor cap on. That is so weird.
If you want that.
And
my friends still don't believe it. So
I know. I think I want to take your class and make sure it's true.
You should.
I want to be able to break down what does negligence mean in a way that people can understand it. I remember there's like 5 elements: duty, all that crazy stuff.
I don't want to get into it.
Right, but just basically, what does it mean?
So let me put it in the context of a car accident, because that is typically the most cases are going to be involved in a car accident. Most people out there, everyone drives, so they're going to be injured in a car accident. So
knocking on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. But you know, everyone out there has a duty to everyone else, meaning that you have to be safe and you have to act as a reasonable person would in your everyday occurrences, in your everyday doings, whatever you do, you have to be safe. So when you get behind the wheel of a car, you have a duty to be a safe driver, to be a reasonable driver, to make sure that you're driving in a manner that does not cause harm to other people. So, for example, if you're going along, what you see is a rear accident, for example, quite frequently. Someone's going along, they are distracted for a second, or they're looking away, or they're just not paying attention to what they should be paying attention to in front of them, which is the road and the vehicles in front of them, to make sure they don't hit other people or hit another car. And so when they fail to pay attention, which is their duty to pay attention and be a safe driver, and they hit someone, and when they hit someone it causes harm, then they are legally responsible to compensate that person for the harm they caused. Now, when I say compensation, what I'm referring to there is that as human beings in the United States, whether you're a legal immigrant or illegal immigrant, it doesn't matter. If you are harmed by someone else's negligence, you're entitled to have your medical bills paid for, have your loss of earnings. If you miss time from work, you can be compensated for your lost wages, whatever they may be. They could be minimum wage, or you could be making $300,000 a year. You're entitled to whatever you lost because of this injury that was caused by someone else, and you're also entitled to pain and suffering. Now, pain and suffering is the hardest thing to define. It's how do you define how much me knocking you in the shoulder is worth, or you having a neck ache, or you having a broken bone, or you not being able to walk again? How do you quantify that amount? And that's really for a jury to decide. I mean, the way we do it is we look at how have jurors decided certain cases, how have jurors looked at an individual, say, you know, they can't walk again for the rest of their life, or sadly you get cases such as wrongful death. You know, this family lost their daughter, or this son lost his mother because of someone else's negligence. How do you quantify how much human life is worth? It's difficult. I mean, there's really no exact science how to do it, but you are nonetheless entitled to be compensated for that. So there's many different avenues that you are entitled to be compensated for.
So hopefully that makes negligence easy to understand. It's also like a store has a duty to keep the aisles clean and safe. And so if you fall and you injure yourself there, slip and fall, then you can file a claim against the store wherever you are, because they had a duty to keep it safe and they failed to do that.
100%. You know, if the city has duties. For example, if you have a sidewalk that is in disrepair and someone falls and hurts himself.
This is not a good reason to go out and find a sidewalk in the city of El Monte to fall on.
I'm talking about other cities. El Monte keeps their sidewalks clean.
Yes, absolutely. You know? But if you do see a sidewalk or a problem with, you know, a property, it is good to let the city know so that they can come do something about it and keep everybody safe.
Yeah, so they can prevent injuries to others. And that's really what, you know, like you said, I used to be on the defense side, and you know, you see these people who are horribly injured, and you know, the plaintiff's attorneys, they get kind of a bad rap. You know, you get the ambulance chasing rap and all that, and we don't do any of that. You know, we take only legitimate cases. You know, we're very selective on our cases. But
didn't you say something that you used to be involved in some sort of fraud finding?
Yeah. So the thing about personal injury law, it's somewhat easy to get into for an attorney, and there is a whole dark side to it. Which the sad part about that is it takes away from the legitimate claims. And when I was on the defense side, I'd work closely with the district attorney, with the Department of Insurance, occasionally the FBI, and you would have they'd often organize crime rings that would take over a lawyer's office or an MRI facility or a doctor's office, and these lawyers would go bring out these clients either to have a fake accident, or they'd bring them in when they weren't really injured, and these poor people would be these pawns in these schemes that this group or organization had going, where they would have fake MRIs, or they would have the person come into a chiropractic facility and fill out their name 30 times, say they treated 30 times, but only show up once. So the sad thing I see now on the plaintiff side is that there's a lot of people out there who are deserving of compensation. They deserve to be properly treated with good doctors and good lawyers, and the insurance company should be paying for the injuries that they had to sustain, but because there's this whole dark side to it, it's jaded the whole personal injury system. So that was what I used to do on the defense side, and then now on the plaintiff side, there's a big push amongst plaintiffs' attorneys to have the same goal, where we try to prevent the fraud, prevent that from happening, because all it does is take away from the people who legitimately need it, the people who are legitimately injured, who are going through very hard times in their life through no fault of their own, and they can't get the proper medical treatment because the insurance companies are denying it because they think it's all fraud, which is unfortunate. It's definitely a sad side to the personal injury arena.
So if somebody does get injured, do you recommend that they come to you first, or they go to a doctor first, or how does it start?
So, and that's a great question. So the most important thing that I tell any client and anyone out there is get well. The most important thing is get the medical treatment you need. Doctors, we are not experts in medicine. A lot of lawyers are not experts in medicine, but a lot of lawyers who say they are or tell you where to go, they may not necessarily have your best interest in mind. Now, I always tell my clients, go to the doctor, go to a hospital immediately. If you're feeling pain, go get treatment right away. Now, when they need to go to a lawyer, is say they don't have insurance, which you see all the time. I mean, now things are starting to change with Obamacare and Covered Care of California, but if the person does not have any doctors, does not have a way to get treatment, but they are desperately in need of treatment, there are doctors out there who an attorney can refer you to who will treat you on what's called a lien. Now, a lien works is that you go see a doctor, you go see a medical professional, a chiropractor, an orthopedic surgeon, even a rehab facility, physical therapy. And what they will do is they will treat you, and you won't have to pay any money up front, but they will collect payment once the case settles or you get a verdict as a result of a trial. So that's a very good way for people who just simply forgot to get insurance, can't afford insurance, that they can get the treatment they need in order to get well, essentially. So
okay. And what is the difference between a minor car accident that doesn't need to go to an attorney and one that does?
Well, I believe that if you're injured in any car accident, if you have a legitimate injury that you feel pain, that you should get an attorney. Because
what if it's just like a day or two of soreness? I mean, is that enough, or do we need like some pain that lasts like a week or a month, or is there some threshold?
Well, there's really no exact science to it. It really depends on who you're dealing with on the other side. I have clients right now who, they dealt with the insurance company right away. They have pretty significant injuries, but they got on the phone with the insurance company. They're really sweet family, they're school teachers, and the insurance company tried to get a hold of them right away, tried to offer them $150. They would have taken it, but she was all flustered at the time. So thank God she didn't, but you got to be careful out there, because the people on the other side, they don't necessarily have your interest at heart.
Not really.
Hardly ever. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
It's really sad.
I did work for defended some insurance companies, and there are very good people out there who truly try to be reasonable, but it's a business, and when they are calling you trying to make an offer, a lot of times people are not in a good negotiating position. These insurance companies or adjusters or field adjusters who are out there going to the scenes right away, they do this all the time. They know exactly what they're doing when they offer you money. You got to be very careful, because an injury that you feel for the first 2 days, for the first 3 days, maybe a week, you think it's going away, but you don't know what the injury really is. You're not a doctor yourself. I mean, we all do it. I've done it as males get the worst rap, not going to doctors when they should. And you don't know what your injury is. And you gotta be very careful, because if you settled your case just by yourself with an insurance adjuster who offered you $500, and then you realize that you're gonna need $10,000, $20,000 of treatment, maybe you have to have surgery, but you have no opportunity now to get that money from the person who hit you because you signed away your rights to this insurance adjuster. So I always believe that you should at least consult with an attorney to see, hey, is this a case that's worth pursuing? Do I have a good case? Then you should move forward. And I mean, a lot of times I will tell the client, look, I'd be happy to help you out and advise you, but you'll get more money if you just handle on your own and negotiate, and I'll give you some letters and some templates to use, because attorneys do have to get paid at some point. And if you're going to get less when you have an attorney than you would by yourself, then you got to make that strategic decision. But I would always at least consult with an attorney, because if the case is legitimate and the case is worth some value, and any attorney, some attorney out there will sign it up.
Yeah.
So.
All right, cool. And the consultation is free,
It's free.
I assume?
So the way the attorney's fees work in personal injury is that you don't pay any money up front. There's no hourly fees. You're not going to have to put down a deposit or any sort of retainer, and any consultation is obviously free. The way it works is that you come in, you meet with your attorney. Your attorney evaluates the case. Should spend a lot of time with you, getting to know you, you getting to know them, which I'll touch on in a second. But you will sign a retainer, and the retainer typically they're around 33% of whatever award you get, or whatever trial or verdict or settlement.
It's that contingency thing again.
It's a contingency. Yeah, it's a percentage of the total goes to the attorney, and oftentimes it goes up to 40% when you get closer to trial, because the attorney's working around the clock as a trial attorney. See, I'm a trial attorney. I love being in front of a jury.
Apparently he does really well. Is it true that you've never lost, or is that a rumor?
Not yet.
Okay.
Knock on wood.
Okay.
Don't jinx me.
Okay.
But I love being in front of a jury. It's like, to me, it's like playing sports. I played football my whole life, football and basketball. I love being in front of the jury. It's the closest thing I can get to, you know, hitting someone or tackling someone without actually touching them and getting arrested for it. So I love being in front of a jury, love being in front of a judge.
Awesome.
I love representing people and fighting for people. And when you look at your attorney, you want to know that this person can take it all the way, that they'll fight for you all the way.
Because there are some that just take any case, any
Sure.
crappy case, and will just take whatever settlement. They're not willing to go to trial, not willing to talk to you. They just want, they're a mill, essentially, which means an attorney that just takes a hugely high volume, meaning a lot of cases. Small cases, they don't even care,
Right.
and you just go in the system and out the system, and it comes in, spits you out, and they're just in it for the little bit of money. They'll what they lack in getting big verdicts for, they'll make up for in how many.
Sure.
So you want to find somebody that really takes the time with you, because that's how you know that you're getting somebody who's really going to pay attention to your case rather than somebody who's just going to run you through the system in their office.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I'm very selective with my cases because I want to spend a lot of time with this person. Because what I'm doing is when I take the case to trial, and I always look at every case like it's going to go to trial from the very start. And that's how you get the big settlements. That's how you get the person what they deserve, is because you look at it that way and you look at the person. Because what you're really selling at trial is the person. Is this person legitimately injured? Is this person honest? Is this person, does their story make sense? Are they believable? Are they likable? Are they gonna, is what they're saying, are they truly, truly injured? And because the defense is gonna try to hit them every which way they can, but if you can just tell the truth and you just tell them exactly what happened and what you've been going through, then you're gonna win every time. So, and as people out there, if you're injured on, you know, by a car accident, slip and fall, however you're injured, you want to spend a lot of time with your attorney too, because you want to know, is this person going to be in my corner? Does this person believe in my case? Are they going to fight for me all the way down the line? They don't just look at me as a number. They look at me as a human being. I'm a person whose life is severely affected by someone else's negligence. I was just sitting there at the red light, and this person slammed into me. Now I can't sleep at night. Now it's ruined my relationship with people. Now I can't go to work. Now my entire life has been veered completely off track because of someone else's negligence. Is this person going to be there with me every step of the way? Are they going to hold my hand through this? Are they going to be there fighting for me all the way down the pike? And you want to make sure you see that in an attorney. You want to make sure that they're for you all the way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So if somebody wins, how do you figure out how much they're gonna get? I mean, everybody like compares the amount that
Sure.
they want to something that they heard.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you tell people up front how much their case is worth, or how do they have an idea as to how much they're gonna get?
You never. I mean, every case is different. You know. I mean, you could get the exact same facts and try the case out in Riverside, for example, and get a low verdict, and then you try the case downtown LA, you get a very high verdict. Exact same characters, exact same actors, everything's the same, but you have 12 different people deciding what your fate is financially. So it's very hard to tell exactly. I never put a number right away because cases evolve. You never know what the case is fully worth. Now you do get some ideas, you know, obviously moderate, low impact rear-end accident with soft tissue injuries, soft tissue meaning neck, muscle strain or sprain of the neck and back, typically is going to be not worth nearly as much as someone who's a quadriplegic or someone who lost a leg, for example. Just horrific, catastrophic injuries. Obviously, there's a scale there, and you kind of get it within a range. But yeah, you can give some estimates, and I tend to, as we get further down the road, as the defense wants to start discussing settlement, or the adjuster for the insurance company wants to discuss a certain amount of dollars that they're willing to pay or that we want to demand, then yeah, we get a ballpark. But for me to sit here and say that each rear-end accident with X, Y, and Z injuries is worth this amount, and broken legs worth that amount, it's wrong, because I hate looking at people in terms of their dollar amount, and their body parts are a dollar amount, and their injuries are a dollar amount, because you can't quantify what this individual person has gone through versus what this other person has gone through and say that they're the same.
Right. All right. Well,
Yeah.
how about we don't love to talk about death, but
Sure.
in death cases, what does that mean, a wrongful death? What's the difference between a right death and a wrong death?
There's no right death. So a wrongful death is anytime someone, sadly, I mean, these are the most tragic cases. I handled a very, very difficult one last year, where someone is killed by the negligence of someone else. A lot of times you'll see it in a car accident. Sadly, you hear about horrific injuries or that cause death because someone else was negligent. Someone takes a bad drug from a pharmaceutical company, it causes them to die. Plane crashes when someone's negligent, causes death. So it's literally, you find someone who's liable for someone else's death, sadly.
So who gets to get that money?
Sure. So in those cases, the plaintiffs are going to be family members. They could be children. They could be adult children, husbands, wives, whatever the heirs are to the person who died. They're the ones who are entitled to any sort of compensation from the party that was responsible for causing the death. I mean, they're extremely sad cases. Extremely sad cases, obviously, as you can imagine.
Right.
So,
what happens in those cases where somebody tells you, well, I don't have insurance and I don't, have
right.
money? What do you do?
Sure, and that's one of the toughest things that being on the plaintiff side, dealing with clients who are the sweetest of people. I mean, you just would do anything to get them what they deserve, and they're severely injured or a loved one has been killed, and the person who caused it just didn't have insurance. They had no money. They essentially deadbeats, or for whatever reason, they have no way to compensate that person. And unfortunately, it's bad luck. It's awful luck. It's a very sad day when I have to tell a client that. I mean, it's sad regardless. I mean, this is not an uplifting profession. What I get out of this is that you truly do help people. I mean, you can never give them their ability to walk back. You never take back the days and the months and the years that they were in pain, but you can at least put a smile on their face with something. And it's just so rewarding to be able to, after all the trouble and trauma they've had to go through, to give them something that gives them hope in life and gives them some release from having to go through this horrible situation that they had nothing to do with, that they did nothing wrong.
Is that why you opened your own firm, or is that
I mean, I was able to get very great experience from great attorneys, working for very good clients in my old firm. I just love trying cases, and I think being on my own and being able to represent individuals, it's extremely rewarding. You get very creative. You can really help people who, sometimes initially you see a case and maybe some attorneys, they look at a case and say it's a bad case, but then you look at it and you spend some more time, you dig a little deeper, and you find out, well, you know what, actually we can hook this company for being negligent, and you look at all sorts of ways that whatever you can to get this person compensation, you can get very creative. And a lot of times it comes from the deeper pockets. I mean, it does. It comes from trying to find some company to hook on this, that they were somehow negligent. Either they employed the individual who caused the injury, or they contracted the person, or there was some negligence in the construction of the vehicle. You're always trying to find ways to make sure that this person gets compensated.
So if you're injured but you don't really know who to sue or what to go after, you come to somebody like you.
You got to go to an attorney.
And you let them investigate.
You absolutely let them investigate. You shouldn't do it on your own, because you might, if you're doing this investigation on your own, you may talk to someone who does not have your interest at heart, someone with the company, and then they'll be writing all this down, and they'll say you said X, Y, and Z then, and then later on you have a different statement. And just credibility is the biggest thing in personal injury. It's making sure people are honest and consistent, because the way you start poking holes in cases is if the plaintiff said something on day 1 completely different than they said to their doctor on day 30, and then completely different than they said in trial 12 months later. So that's what's going to kill a case. So it's very important that you try to do it all through an attorney, any investigation. Anytime you're talking to anyone, it should all be done through your attorney. Do not talk to an insurance adjuster before you consult an attorney.
Good advice, always.
Yeah.
What if somebody has an attorney and is not really happy with their relationship with that attorney? Can they switch to another one?
Absolutely. You can always switch. You can always fire your attorney. Your attorney can always fire you, which hopefully wouldn't happen. But you can always fire your attorney, and that should be in the retainer agreement. It's very important that when you get the contract that the attorney wants you to sign, you need to go through it, because you want to make sure they're not throwing in a very high percentage. I saw a retainer agreement the other day where the attorney said he was going to take 60% of whatever result. I was looking at this, I was like, this is unethical. this is ridiculous that they're going to take this much. And they were very happy to hear that I was actually, going to take only half that.
Yeah.
And that's just what the custom is in practice. But you got to be very careful. I mean, there's a lot, if you've never met your attorney, then you got to raise some suspicions. I remember I got a quick story. My old firm, when I was on the defense side, this plaintiff was in there. He looked a lot like my paralegal, very similar. Both had shaved heads, shorter guys. And the attorney comes in, he comes out of the elevator. My paralegal's handing me something, and the attorney goes, "Oh, hi, Jose, right? How you doing? It's good to see you. Yeah, come over here. We'll talk about your medical history, and we're about to take your deposition." I was like, "Excuse me, counsel, that's my paralegal right there." And his client's sitting in the corner over there waving his hand saying,
"No,
sir,
that's me.
I think I'm your attorney. I think I'm your client." So you see a lot of attorneys out there who never meet their clients, never talk to them before the deposition, before mediation, and you want to make sure you want to have a good relationship. You want them to become your friends. I mean, this wrongful death case I had, it was like I became a family member of theirs. I mean, it was very sad. Wife of over 50 years, and she was like a grandmother to me. I mean, you just get really close with these people because you get so involved in their life. And I mean, it's just I made so many amazing friends just through my clients. And you want your attorney to be that way. You want to feel like it's your rock, someone you can be your friend.
Wow, this has been really awesome. Really, congratulations on all the
Thank
success.
you.
Who would have thought from
Who would have
us,
thought, huh?
young crazy kids,
young crazy law students. Now I'm a professor.
Nuts. Well, as you can tell, he really cares about his clients, and so if you think that you may have a case or a question for him, you're free to contact him. We'll provide that information. And I just want to say thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you.
For
Appreciate
taking the time to do this.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, till next time. Bye. All right, and welcome to The Law Works for You with me, Chelsea Galicia. Where here every month I interview a new attorney so that you can understand what kind of problems you can go to attorneys with and understand different fields of law, and we answer all sorts of legal problems. Or we talk about them at least to try and guide you in the right direction for your solutions that you need. I am almost a little bit more nervous for this second show because we received such an overwhelming positive feedback from the first show that I really hope I can deliver again the great kind of information that we did last time. And I think we can today with my friend here, Jack Holcomb, who is a partner at Kramer, Holcomb & Sheik, a law firm that he and two friends started a few years ago. And we're going to talk today about employment issues. You'll remember that last time we talked to Michael Burgess about work-related injuries, and today we're going to talk about work-related matters. The relationship that you have with your employer is in part governed by some laws and rules that you should all know about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And not only is Jack my friend, somebody that I went to law school with and who's always been there for me whenever I needed him, but he knows his stuff. We call him the Jack of all trades because he pretty much knows everything or something about everything, although today he's going to just talk mostly about employment stuff. So he also knows both sides of the law. He's worked on the defense side, which we'll talk about what that means, and also plaintiff. So let's actually start there. Welcome, Jack. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chelsea.
So let's start off with, what does it mean that you started off defense? Who did you defend?
So in legal civil lawsuits, you have a plaintiff and a defendant, and the defense would be the company or the person that's being sued by the plaintiff. So when I started out in my practice, I did primarily defense work at a firm downtown. So we would be representing corporations and business owners whenever someone had lodged a complaint against them in court.
All right, and then your firm right now primarily focuses on plaintiff, but does still take some defense cases, right?
That's correct. We mostly represent individuals who've had issues at work, have been terminated wrongfully, things like that. But every once in a while, we will represent small business owners.
So what kind of complaints do people come to you mostly about their employers?
You know, a lot of times people will come to me after they've been terminated. That's not necessarily always the best thing because oftentimes people are experiencing issues that had a part to play in the termination well before the actual termination. And it's much better for people to go see an attorney as soon as they think they have any kind of an issue with their employer.
Okay. And so if somebody were to call you early on and say, hey, I'm having this problem, do you charge them for that?
No. When individuals call, it's always a free consultation.
Okay. And so when do you start to charge people, and how much does it cost if they do hire you as their attorney?
Well, we don't usually charge individuals at all by the hour. It would be on a contingency basis.
What does that mean?
That means there would be no charge or cost at all to the client if there was no recovery. So, we're welcome to talk to anyone that feels they have an issue. We'll definitely take the time to sit down with them and, listen to everything they have to say and see if they have any potential recourse. And there's no obligation for payment or anything. I mean, they come down to our office. We try to make them feel comfortable and, allow them to really get out everything that's frustrating them, so we can look and see if there's any legal avenues to recover.
So I know in my background in work comp, most cases the contingency is 15%. Is there a usual contingency fee in employment matters?
Well, it ranges depending on what the issues are at play, but it's typically around 33% prior to the initiation of a lawsuit. At that point, it usually goes up to 40%. We would also, discuss variations depending on what type of conduct occurred.
So you really work with people to make sure that you can represent them if they really do need
Sure.
some representation.
Yeah, I mean, we always want to make sure that if someone has a real legitimate issue, that they're going to be able to get some sort of redress, even if it's something that we wouldn't want to take on. We'd definitely find someone that would be willing to help them if we weren't able to do it.
All right, very cool. So people come to you after they've been terminated. Most people don't like to be terminated, but it's not always illegal to terminate somebody, right? Generally, here in California, the employer can hire you at will, fire you at will. Same thing, you can quit whenever you want if you don't like something. So even still, there are times when it is illegal for an employer to fire you. What are some reasons that they legally can't fire you for?
Well, I mean, there's many reasons, but first of all, as you said, California is an at-will employment state. So unless there's something in your employment contract, if you have one,
which very few people do.
That's correct. Most employment arrangements, there's just simply a handbook or something like that. It's not written out with a term of employment. So for most people, it's an at-will arrangement, and they get frustrated sometimes when they've dealt with an employer who's treated them unfairly, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have a legal right for damages in a civil lawsuit. They would have to have suffered some sort of discrimination or harassment, or not properly been paid for the work they did, not properly been allowed to take breaks. There's various avenues for legal recourse. But just the simple disagreement with a boss or a termination in of itself doesn't justify a civil lawsuit.
Okay, so what are some pretty solid reasons that, if your employer fired you for this reason, probably something is not right?
Well, a lot of the times it can be based on just someone's race or their orientation or their gender even. People are just treated differently. They're not allowed to be a part of the group. If there's a certain type of gender or race that is predominant in whatever company it is, and the person who ends up being reprimanded or terminated is of another race or gender, oftentimes they're excluded. They're called names. It doesn't have to be overt. Sometimes what's happening can be something that just goes on, and just you realize that something not right is happening. You're being excluded when you really shouldn't be.
What about age?
Age is also definitely a big issue. I mean, it's oftentimes you've got groups of older folks that are kind of kept out from especially now there's so many new companies with younger people, and people as they get older, they're oftentimes pushed to the fringes of the organization, and that's totally improper.
Yeah. I've also heard of employers firing women for becoming pregnant.
Yeah, that's a major issue. it happens. It's not just that simple too. I mean, there can be retaliation that's going on once a woman reports to their superior that they have a pregnancy. There's often retaliation. They're treated differently. They're encouraged not to take the amount of time they're entitled to by law. They're encouraged to come back early. Sometimes they're given types of assignments that they really shouldn't be doing even when they're off, depending on what type of job they have. So and oftentimes too there's complications that can arise during the pregnancy or after the pregnancy, which really require the mother to be with the child. And if they're being forced to come back when there's issues that aren't yet resolved with the health and safety of either the mother or the child, that's not appropriate. And so I think people really need to be on the lookout when they are experiencing maternal leave, things like this. They have to realize that the employer really does owe them respect, and they have to follow the law with regard to pregnancy issues.
So let's say that somebody comes to you and you've determined that they've been terminated or harassed, or when it comes to harassment, does it matter who the harassment is coming from? Like, does it have to be a boss, or if they're harassed by coworkers, is that also not acceptable?
Sure. Any kind of harassment in the workplace is unacceptable regardless of who it's coming from.
And does it matter if the employer, like somebody in management or a supervisor, knows about it? Because what if the supervisor doesn't know about it?
These are getting into really technical issues. I mean, it really is a case-by-case determination of what the employer knew. Technically, it's going to be hard to show liability on behalf of an employer if there was no reporting of what was going on or the supervisor wasn't aware of it. But sometimes it's the facts just differ. So sometimes something could be going on that's inappropriate, that's seen by a supervisor that maybe turns a blind eye, and if that's the case, then there's some real issues there.
All right. So if somebody comes to you with a claim that you think is valid, what happens next? What's kind of the process that they'll go through?
Yeah, well, typically when we have a client come in, we sit down with them for a while and make sure that they're able to tell us everything that happened in their employment, duration, when they first started realizing something wrong was happening or felt that they were being treated inappropriately. Then, what we will typically do if we feel that it's a valid case after some research on the specific issues and looking into the company, we typically will send a demand letter to the company.
What is a demand letter?
That means that we'll basically set forth all of the facts and the legal remedies in a demand, and we'll basically try to go and negotiate with the company before filing a lawsuit, just to make sure that there's not a way to resolve. There could potentially be a way to resolve it without having to go to court, and that's typically in everybody's best interest.
All right. So if something does have to go to court, what does the plaintiff or the person that's filing the claim have to do?
Well, yeah, a lot of people are really worried about going to a lawyer or suing their company that they used to work for, or their employer or their coworker. They're worried about that, and they're worried about what kind of implications that might lead to down the line. But really what we always tell everyone is just to let the attorneys handle the lawsuit. They've been through enough, obviously, if they're at that point. So they just need to trust that we know what we're doing and let us guide them through it. So we'll file a complaint in the court. Then the company, the defendant, will have about 30 days to file some sort of a response. And then we'll go through a process of discovery. We'll learn exactly what happened. We'll get documents from the other side. We'll be able to analyze, talk to other witnesses, really prove up the case. And then it would eventually go to the trial stage.
And do they have to testify in court in front of a judge and a jury?
Well, typically, if the plaintiff has suffered something in an employment-related case, they're gonna have to answer questions throughout the discovery process. There's going to be depositions, and we typically would want the person who suffered to be able to express what happened to them to a fact finder or jury, if it was that, to really be able to highlight and show what has been done, how they've been wrong.
Yeah, just a little timeout. A deposition, in case you don't know, is a legal proceeding where you sit at a table with your attorney and the attorney that represents the other side. And there's a court reporter there that's typing everything down. And if you need an interpreter who's there to translate everything. So the attorney for the other side gets to ask you questions and you have to answer them under penalty of perjury, so you could go to jail for lying. And so that's what it is, and it's a process that they use to figure out the facts for both sides. Right?
Yeah, and it's formal, but typically if we're dealing with the employee who's our client, we have them in our office where they should feel comfortable, and if there's ever any issues with feeling pressured or nervous, we're always able to make sure that they're treated appropriately by the other lawyer, or they can take breaks whenever they want if they get flustered, and they can continue it to another time if they're not feeling like today's the day to go through this questioning.
Good to know. All right, so let's say we get to the end of the case, or maybe somewhere along the middle. What kind of, when we say remedies, what kind of outcomes do people expect? What do they get if they win?
Yeah, so it really depends on the case. I mean, when we're talking about employment, we're talking about a broad field here. I mean, it could go anywhere from someone just working at a gas station, someone cleaning, someone involved in child care, someone working at a large store, all the way up to senior levels. I mean, we've got professionals that come in that are making a lot of money that they still get treated inappropriately by their employers. And it can be for various reasons. So sometimes people really want to keep their jobs. Sometimes it's too late. They've already been terminated wrongfully. Sometimes people want to see justice. Sometimes people are after dollars that they lost because they don't have a job anymore. So there's various remedies.
Mostly money.
It's in civil. It's mostly damages in the form of money, but again, it depends on what the specific case is.
Any good stories of a good outcome that you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, we've had a lot of interesting cases, and like I said, you have smaller cases that deal with just little issues about, oh, I wasn't given this much time off, or I had an issue with requesting some time off and I got reprimanded, to bigger cases where flat out sexual harassment, which is really inappropriate, and sometimes it goes on and on because the person feels trapped. And these kind of cases they're the worst. You also get kinds where there's just discrimination going on. Sometimes it's just offhand comments. Sometimes it's real in your face and just horrible to someone. So I don't want to get into the details of any specific case, but I will say that it definitely brings us a lot of joy to see these people that have had these issues to get the relief that they want.
Great. So if somebody thinks they have a problem, they can obviously call you. But let's say they already have an attorney. How do they know whether they have a good attorney?
Sure. A lot of times people get referred from one attorney to another attorney, and they go out and they ask their friends, hey, do you know anyone? And they get referred on to an attorney. It really, I think once you meet with an attorney and you have a one-on-one conversation with them, you can pretty much tell if they're good or not. I mean, yeah. It's a way of being able to relate to the worker and also being able to relate to the employer. And for instance, in our firm, having the defense experience, we spent years just working for the employer. So we spent years dealing with, okay, now we've got this complaint, they're alleging that this happened, how can we beat this? And talking to management, when you're getting into corporate levels, you're talking to high-end, very successful people, and how they look at how do we deal with this case. And so for us, having that kind of experience, it's really great because we know exactly when we're going through all stages of the process what they're thinking and how they're trying to defeat the case. And so it's great for us because we're able to kind of go at it knowing what their process is at the same time. So I think it helps to have an attorney that has done both the plaintiff's and the defense side.
Cool. And why did you decide to first get into employment and then to come over to mostly plaintiff?
Sure. Well, employment always interests me. I mean, obviously, people are always working. I've been working a different jobs since I was 13, and you see different environments. I worked in retail. I used to work at Blockbuster Video, many restaurants. When I was younger, I was even cleaning some trash up from this apartment complex that was near my house just for some money on the side. And you'd have different relationships with your supervisors. And so it was really always interesting to me to see how that plays out in different walks of life and in different levels of types of corporations, and going from smaller retail operations to large firms. So it was always interesting to me, every facet of employment, and that's how I got into it originally on the legal side. I wanted to help people out. That's basically why I went away from the corporate stuff more. I saw how corporations looked at these claims and how they didn't really care that much about the person. It was more about how do we, get out of this and try to get under the table or pay as little as possible. And that's not always the case. I mean, oftentimes employers want to, achieve a just result as well. And if they realize something's happened, a lot of employers will, make things right or do their very best to do so. So it's certainly not always the case. But for me, I enjoy dealing with the individuals more than I enjoy dealing with the corporations as it pertains to employment issues.
Awesome. So when you have a case, let's say I have a case, how often should I expect to be in contact with my attorney? Like, how fast do things go? Do we talk every day? How often do we communicate? Because I know that people that in work comp, they have claims and they want to know what's going on every day, like something new is going to happen, in the last 30 minutes. Do things go as fast as you want them to go? How much contact do you have with your clients?
Well, first of all, things don't go as fast always as you want them to go. I mean, the court system now with the funding, I mean, you file a civil lawsuit and it can take up to 2 years before you ever get to trial. So it's not as quick, and people get frustrated with that. They want resolution, especially when they've been on the fence maybe about, bringing the suit, just worried about the implications of it and having to go through it, and then now they have to wait for 2 years for the day in court. That's very frustrating. But in regards to contact, I mean, we encourage our clients to call us, email us, get in touch with us in any way that's best for them. It's, if I'm not there, if I'm out in court or doing something else, there's always staff there that are willing to, or other attorneys that are willing to take the calls, and that'll always get back to me, and I'll try to call them back as soon as I can. But yeah, I think it's important for the client to be able to reach their attorney whenever they need to.
Right. I think we learned in law school that the most complaints that attorneys get, or that the state bar receives about attorneys, is poor communication. So that's one way to know if your attorney is not so great, is that you never hear back from them. So it should be a priority for your attorney to get back to you, although they are busy, so you do have to balance their busy schedules with the fairness of how often they should be in touch with you.
Sure, and I'm fortunate because I have two partners, Dan Kramer and Shirok Sheik, and they're in the office when I'm not many times, and they'll take the call, and it's great. A lot of solo attorneys, they have difficulty because if they are in court, by the time they get back to the office, they've had so many calls that have come in or so many emails that they haven't been able to attend to. And having two great partners that I can trust and staff, it's really great because we make sure that the client's always responded to in a timely fashion.
All right. And one other question I have: well, maybe many, but one that I can think of right now is, who can file a claim? Who is? Let's start with just in general. If somebody is here undocumented, can they file a claim for some employment injury?
Yeah, I think people...
I'm sorry, not employment injury, because that's more like work comp, but an employment claim.
There's going to be intricacies to every particular case. I think it's definitely worth going and consulting with an attorney if you've experienced anything and you have some sort of a residency issue. there's going to be ways to effectuate recovery or some sort of a resolution. So it's always good to go in and speak to an attorney if you're having issues.
Some people are afraid to being deported if they go to an attorney. Have you ever seen that happen? I've never seen it happen in workers' comp.
I've never seen that happen.
Okay.
Again, everything that is said to an attorney is going to be privileged under
Which means secret?
Sure, under the attorney-client privilege. And so, when there's a confidence barrier there, when people have confidence, they go in their attorney, there's a confidentiality that's sacred, and so nothing is going to get out to some authority.
Well, what if they're here working under maybe a false name or false social security number, and so they're afraid that it'll come out in discovery and something will happen to them? Have you ever seen where something bad happens to
I have
somebody
not
like
seen that? It's the kind of thing where when it comes up, you consult with immigration attorneys, you consult with other people that would have more information about the actual technical immigration issues. But no, I mean, that it's not something that would ever come up without having a lot of analysis go into it beforehand on our side. I mean, we would never put someone's immigration status in jeopardy by bringing a civil lawsuit.
All right, and then the other thing that I can think of is the difference between an employee and an independent contractor, because that's important in workers' comp. You can only get or file a workers' compensation claim if you're an actual employee, although sometimes if you're an independent contractor who's been treated like an employee, you can still file a claim. So I would imagine that there's something similar in employment, that you actually have to be an employee.
Sure, there's definitely issues. I mean, a lot of companies will go ahead and try to get out of certain tax benefit issues by designating someone as a independent contractor when they should not be. And that happens everywhere. A lot of people think this happens with smaller businesses, but I've seen big corporations that try to put their employees in the independent contractor realm when they really shouldn't be. And so if there's a lot of people that have come to me and said, well, I'm an independent contractor, so I don't think that I have any relief. But it's just really something that needs to be analyzed by an attorney, because there's a lot of detailed factors that go into it. And if you are worried about bringing something because of that, you shouldn't be. You should really go in and talk to the attorney and find out if there's a way that you can be helped.
All right, cool. And now let's just, for any business owners out there who don't want an employee to file a claim against them, what are some good tips for employers to help reduce or avoid any employees filing claims against them?
Well, the first thing that every employer should do is have a really detailed handbook that is reviewed every year thoroughly by an attorney. I mean, the laws are changing constantly. There's new cases coming down. It's beneficial to everybody. The employer knows what their rules are. They know what the law is, and the employee is given a chance to understand the rules and the law. What's really effective is when the handbooks are clearly written, and if it's possible to give the employee some paid time to sit down and review it, that's great. It's helpful for everyone, and there's reporting requirements that come out that are going to be really beneficial to the employee if something negative happens. So the handbook's a really good starting point, and just encouraging your employees to come forward if there's any issues, and really documenting things and remedying them immediately. If there's any kind of a complaint about harassment or discrimination, it should really be taken care of immediately, and it should be documented, and to make sure that the employee is happy.
All right, awesome. All right, well, I think that's about all the time that we have. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day, and hopefully we get you home soon. I know you probably have kids to pick up. He's got two little ones, a 4 and a 2-year-old, so he's a dad also. So awesome. So thank you so much. I think you've been an awesome expert, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of great feedback. Make sure that you ask him any questions by directing them to his website or his law firm's phone number. We'll get you that information, or the station's contact, you can contact us as well, and we can forward your information to Jack in case you want him to call you and see if there is a problem that he can help you out with. So thank you again so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Good job. I don't know where you went.
So we're still rolling, huh?
What do you mean?
I saw there was 28 minutes.
Yeah, he said there was gonna be 20 minutes, so at first I marked, he's like, I should go for the minute. I was like,
Good job. You guys killed it.
What's his number?
What? Art, what the hell? What is going on
Good job.
here?
You guys did a great job.
Wait, I don't understand. What do you mean? Where did he go?
that chick came in.
Yeah, man.
And I accidentally left together. I don't know.
I guess that's it. He had enough of you, Jack. You bored him to death, Jack.
No, that was good. What the heck, though?
We're the ROTC people.
Oh my god.
That's random. I hope you done.
Yeah, he said 28, so he told you
And he left it, but thank you.
No. I'm only did the 1 minute. I was like,
Yeah, I know. That's what I was wondering. Where's my phone?
it's supposed to be 28 minutes, right?
Oh my god, that's so weird.
So he's still rolling.
No, but that was good,
Becky?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Good, good.
I think you guys did a good job. Yeah, you guys did great.
I'm gonna call him. What the heck? Wait. Why did you give it to me for free?
Is this the first time you've
Dude,
seen it?
way to make me feel important. You failed?
She's only got Mike, but she was
What?
nervous.
I mean, what the hell? What? Okay.
What was I?
I mean, like I should be shocked. Fuck, dude. But I'm sure it will be just fine to go through. Because I was worried about that. I was like, 'cause usually it'll do like a 5-minute thing, but I think I like the 1 minute. But, right?
It is good.
Right.
So you got changed, huh?